They say family's supposed to have your back. Funny how mine always found a way to stab me, and mine politely, of course, over wine and roasted salmon. I'm Seth. I'm 32 now. Been working as a renovation contractor since I was 19. My friends call me the guy who makes old things beautiful again. My family. They just call me the guy who fixes stuff. Let me take you back to what I now call the dinner. It was supposed to be a celebration, my little sister's promotion to regional director at some luxury skincare company. Harper's only 29, but my mom's always called her the go-getter. You know the type LinkedIn-obsessed heels louder than her work ethic Instagram captions that sound like TED Talks. She's not evil, she's just curated. So there we were. My mom's place in the suburbs. Candles flickering, fancy silverware pulled out like it was Thanksgiving, everyone dressed like they were auditioning for a Netflix dinner party. And me, I had drywall dust still stuck under my nails from an emergency ceiling collapse job I squeezed in just to make it on time. They started in early. "Oh, Harper, tell us about the new regional team. Were they intimidated by you?" Mom practically cooed. Harper smiled like she was being filmed. A little, maybe. But I just told them, we lead with excellence or we don't lead at all. She even had the gall to say it with a champagne flute in hand. The table laughed. I didn't. When it was my turn, I mentioned I'd just finished converting a busted duplex into 2 beautiful rental units. Hand-stained trim. Custom cabinetry. I showed photos, crisp before and afters. Mom blinked at them like they were ultrasound pictures from a stranger. "Well, as long as you're keeping busy, dear." That word, busy, like my entire career was a long hobby she was waiting for me to outgrow. What really burned? For years, I paid for our family's holidays. Flights, Airbnb rentals, groceries. I was proud to. It wasn't about being the big spender, it was about keeping us connected. I thought if I paid enough, they'd see me. Spoiler alert, they didn't. They didn't. It all came to a head when Harper raised her glass for a toast. "I just want to thank Mom for always believing in me," she said, eyes glistening. "Even when people said marketing was a dead end, you told me I'd shine." Then she added, "And to Seth, thanks for always being so handy. We knew you'd make yourself useful somehow." Useful? Like I was a Swiss Army knife they passed around at family functions. I laughed. Out loud, the room froze. And I felt something snap inside me so clean and final, it almost felt good. "You know what I said? I'm done." Done with what Mom asked, furrowing her brow like I'd farted in church. "All of it," I replied. "Paying for the beach houses, covering plane tickets, being your emotional janitor? If I'm just the help, then maybe it's time I stopped showing up with tools." Mom opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. "You all love what I do for you, but you've never once respected who I am." Then I stood up, pushed my chair in, and walked out. No one followed me. Not then. But a few months later, oh, they came crawling. The thing about walking out of your family's dinner in silence, it feels incredible for about 2 minutes. Then the silence hits. Not the peaceful kind, no, the gut-sinking kind where your phone stays dry and your inbox stays empty. Not a single call, not even a passive-aggressive text. They didn't care that I left. Or maybe they just didn't notice. That stung worse. I didn't expect a parade, but I did expect something. And, "Are you okay? Let's talk." Instead, I got radio silence, and for a while I let it be. Focused on work, my schedule filled up quick: 2 home offices, 1 backyard renovation, and a flooded basement job that ended up being a full teardown and rebuild. Clients saw me. They respected what I brought to the table. I could almost forget that my own family didn't. Almost. Then the first text came, 3 weeks later, from Harper. "Hey, random question. Do you still have that extra air mattress?" No hi. No. Sorry about the dinner. Just straight to the ask. I stared at the screen like it owed me an explanation. Didn't respond. Then Mom chimed in 2 days later. "Seth, sweetheart, your sister's flight got messed up and she needs a place to crash. Just one night. Can you be a dear, a dear?" Suddenly I was family again. Convenient. That night, I sat on my couch and scrolled through my camera roll. Found an old photo from last Christmas, Harper holding up a gift I bought her. She captioned it later with, "Thanks to my hardworking boss, not me." Her boss. Like I didn't even exist. And that's when it clicked. They weren't reaching out because they missed me. They reached out because they needed something. Again. Was why that night I blocked Harper, then muted Mom's number. I wasn't angry, I was clear. A week later, my cousin Danny reached out. He's cool. Always been Switzerland in the family Cold War. "Hey man, Mom told me what happened at the dinner. For what it's worth, I get it. They treat you like the family butler. You deserve better." That message hit different. I didn't realize how badly I needed anyone to say it out loud. I thanked him, and that was that. But things weren't over. Not even close. Next month rolls around and Mom calls from a new number. Leaves a voicemail. Her voice was that fake sweet tone she uses when she wants something big. Seth, honey, I know we had a rough dinner, but we're still family. And, well, Harper's condo is being fumigated and she has nowhere else to go for a few days. Could you please be the bigger person? The bigger person. That phrase. Like I owed them maturity after years of emotional crumbs. I didn't reply. Instead, I got to work. Not on a renovation, but on a plan. A quiet one. See, I had receipts. Not literal receipts, though I did have those too, but memories. Screenshots of bank transfers, group messages where I offered to cover holiday rentals, messages from Mom thanking me for saving Christmas that one year when Harper accidentally lost her wallet. For once, I wasn't going to let them rewrite history. I pulled everything into a folder, labeled it reality check, no dramatic intention, just prep. Because I knew them. The moment I cut off the money, they'd spin it. Say I ghosted them. Say I was unstable. So I prepared. But even I wasn't ready for what came next. A group email, subject line family intervention, sent by Mom. CC'd Harper, Aunt May, Uncle Jeff, and Danny. The message started with, "We love Seth dearly, but his recent behavior has been concerning." My jaw dropped. They framed me like a villain in my own life. Claimed I was emotionally erratic and pulling away from those who care. Said they just wanted me to seek help. I laughed. Out loud. Not the funny kind, the bitter kind. The kind that feels like spitting out poison. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the email to Danny privately with a single sentence. "Still think they mean well," and he replied within minutes. "Seth, that's low. I'm so sorry. I didn't need him to fix anything. Just knowing he saw it too, that was enough." That night, I opened that reality check folder, and I started writing. Not a reply to the email, a letter. Not for them, for me. A timeline of everything. The dinners I paid for, the trips I planned, the times they laughed off my career. Every thankless favor, every subtle jab. I wrote until my fingers ached. And when I was done, I saved it and shut my laptop. That letter, it wasn't for confrontation. It was my way of letting go of the version of me that kept hoping they'd see my worth. I didn't need them to apologize, I just needed to stop expecting them to. Some people cut you off with screaming matches and slammed doors. My family did it with silence, dressed in fake concern. After that group email, things got quiet again. Like eerily quiet. No follow-ups, no apologies, just silence. I wasn't surprised. I'd stopped reacting, and without my reactions, they didn't know how to play the game. The air felt different around me. I wasn't lighter, not yet. But I was clear. I kept showing up to my jobs, putting in work. I rebuilt a porch for a single mom who cried when she saw it. Installed a new roof for an elderly couple who baked me cookies as payment, even though I told them not to. Every job felt like a quiet reminder I mattered. I added value. People trusted me. They just didn't share my last name. Meanwhile, Harper posted another promotion update on LinkedIn. Something about rising by lifting others, complete with a photo of her at a charity gala. I almost choked on my coffee. The only thing she ever lifted was her own reflection. Then one morning, I got a text from Danny. "Heads up, there's talk of Thanksgiving happening at your place. You should know, my place, my home, not an invitation. A decision. Made without me." That was the moment I stopped playing nice. I messaged Mom directly, not even bothering with pleasantries. "Danny says you're planning to host Thanksgiving at my house?" "Why?" Her reply came fast. "Well, you have the most space, dear, and everyone assumed you'd want to contribute. It's tradition." Tradition. The word rang like an insult. I replied, "Contribute, I hosted 4 holidays, paid for 3, and got thanked for none. That's not tradition. That's exploitation." Her response, "You're being dramatic again." That word again. Like my emotions were a character flaw. Not once did she acknowledge the group email, the shade, the gall. That night, I said no without explanation. Just, "My house isn't available. Make other plans." She didn't reply. But 2 days later, Harper posted a cryptic story. Some people forget where they came from. My friends saw it. Sent it to me with wide-eye emojis. I just replied, let them talk. I'm done apologizing for outgrowing dysfunction. Thanksgiving came and went. I spent it with my neighbor Jake and his 2 kids. We grilled burgers in the backyard, drank beer, and played Mario Kart until midnight. It was loud and messy and beautiful. Not one forced smile, not one backhanded compliment, just laughter that felt real. But I knew the storm wasn't over. Christmas was next. And I had a feeling they wouldn't ask. This time they'd just show up. So I prepared. Quietly. I started by changing the locks. Not because I thought they'd break in, but because I needed that symbolic ride. Then I made a guest list for a small Christmas Eve dinner, just people who made me feel whole. Jake, his kids, Danny, my old shop mentor Miguel, my friend Paige from high school who beat cancer and now teaches kickboxing. They were family to me now. We had hot cocoa, a fire pit, and stories that didn't end in guilt trips. That night around 9 p.m. my phone buzzed. Harper. Calling. I let it ring, then it buzzed again. Mom this time. I turned off the phone. Not out of spite, but peace. I didn't need their holiday chaos in my space. The next morning, Christmas Day, I found a voicemail. Mom in her usual guilt-laced tone. I can't believe you shut your own mother out on Christmas. We were 5 minutes away from stopping by. Everyone was heartbroken. Heartbroken. I replayed it twice, then deleted it. You can't break what you already threw away. But the real twist came 3 days later. A letter, handwritten, from Mom. That alone was unusual. Inside it started with an apology, but the kind that ends in but. She said she was sorry I felt hurt, but she'd always done her best. Sorry I felt overlooked, but Harper needed more guidance. Sorry I pulled away, but family meant forgiveness. Every line was laced with deflection. But one thing stood out. She said, "We miss you. Things aren't the same without your presence or your help. You've always been our glue. Our glue. The invisible kind. Quiet, always expected. Never appreciated. That's what I'd been to them. Not a son, not a brother. A fix-it tool. A ride. A silent supporter in the background while they stood in the spotlight. And now they missed me not because they saw me, but because they felt my absence in the form of inconvenience. That was my confirmation. I wasn't losing family. I was shedding codependency. That weekend, I made one more change. I called my accountant and shifted the family vacation fund I'd been contributing to for years into a separate investment. One with my name on it only. I wasn't going to burn bridges. I was just removing my name from the toll booth. Let them fund their own flights now. I didn't send a letter, didn't post a clapback. I just adjusted my life. Silently. Intentionally. I was no longer the glue. I was the foundation for myself, and that felt like the beginning of something better. January rolled in with frost on my windows and peace in my bones. The first winter in years where I didn't have to stretch myself thin to keep everyone else warm. I'd always been the one showing up early, fixing chairs, shoveling snow off Mom's driveway, refilling wine glasses before they ran empty. But this time I sat by my own fireplace blanket over my legs, no obligations tapping on my shoulder. It felt strange at first, like I'd skipped a step in some invisible dance. Then it felt like freedom. I kept working, of course. Work was steady. Bookings came in faster than I could handle. I even hired a part-time apprentice kid named Eli, 19 hungry to learn. Saw a lot of myself in him. I started mentoring him the way I wished someone had done for me back when I was building foundations with my bare hands and blind faith. Meanwhile, the family drama kept humming in the background like a broken fridge, annoying but ignorable. That was until Aunt May called. She never calls, not unless there's a funeral or a meltdown. I let it go to voicemail, then listened with half an ear until her tone pulled me upright. "Hey Seth, I'm not getting in the middle, but your mom's not doing great. She's been down. Says the holidays felt hollow without you. Says Harper's barely visiting. Just thought you should know." That last line, "just thought you should know." It was like a stone dropped in still water. I didn't feel guilt exactly, more like recognition. They weren't missing me, they were missing the utility of me. Harper not visiting probably meant she had no reason to, no rides, no handyman, no buffer. And Mom. Her down mood likely came from having to clean up after her own choices. Still, I sat with it. I'm not heartless, just tired. Tired of pretending silence means safety. Tired of people calling you family when what they really mean is resource. I didn't return Aunt May's call, but I did start checking in on myself more. I booked a short trip, just me, no work, no family. 3 days in the mountains, cabin rental, no cell service. Snow on the roof, firewood, journals, just time. I hiked, I thought, I sat with old wounds. I forgave myself for staying too long in a story I should have closed chapters ago. I realized something important up there. I'd been waiting for validation from people who couldn't see past their own reflections. I wanted them to recognize my worth, to say thank you without strings, but they never would, because people like them see empathy as weakness and independence as rebellion. When I came back home, I didn't feel lighter. I felt steadier, like a tree with roots instead of a leaf in the wind. That's when the second letter arrived, this one from Harper. It wasn't long, just 4 sentences scribbled on some hotel stationery. Seth, I don't know what's going on with you, but this whole cold shoulder thing is childish. We're family. You're making Mom worry. Don't make this worse. That was it. No, how are you? No. Can we talk? Just accusations wrapped in entitlement. I didn't reply. I couldn't. Not without ripping the bandage off again. Instead, I went for a drive. No destination, just motion. Somewhere around the 3rd town over, I realized what bothered me the most. It wasn't the lack of apology. It was that she thought this silence was punishment, as if I was doing it to be cruel, when really it was healing. Boundary setting, recovery. You can't call someone cold for finally taking off the armor they wore just to survive your love. A week later, I ran into Uncle Jeff at the hardware store. He pulled me aside near the paint section. Said, "You know your mom misses you. She's not perfect, but she's your mother." I smiled politely, replied, "I know. And I'm not perfect either. But I'm her son, not her second income or emotional repairman." He nodded like he understood, but his eyes flickered with discomfort. Because people don't like when the quiet ones start speaking with clarity. Clarity disrupts comfort. It forces reflection. And that's what my family had always avoided. Later that week, Danny texted again. "Just saw Mom. She said Harper's been spiraling. Career stress. Apartment issues. Guess who she said could help fix it? You." I laughed. Couldn't help it. It was almost poetic. She ignored me when I was useful. Now she remembered me when her scaffolding cracked. But I wasn't scaffolding anymore. I wasn't the guy you call to make the crisis disappear with a screwdriver and a credit card. I was building something of my own now. Real connections, a steady business, quiet mornings where my phone didn't buzz with demands. I didn't tell Danny to take sides. I just told him the truth. Tell her I hope she figures it out. But I'm not stepping back into a life where my worth is measured by what I give away. That night, I got another voicemail from Mom. Her voice was softer this time. Less edge, more air. "Seth, I know things haven't been fair, and I know you feel like we didn't treat you right. Maybe we didn't. I don't have the words, but I'm thinking about you. I hope we talk soon." I replayed it once just to make sure I heard her right. She didn't ask for anything, didn't guilt trip, just reached. It wasn't enough to heal the past. But it was something. I didn't call her back, not yet. I needed more than words. I needed consistency. Change. Not just from her, but from me. I needed to stop hoping they'd turn into people who could see me. I needed to become someone who didn't need them to. February came cold and gray, but something in me stayed warm. Not from the weather, from the absence of noise, from no longer bracing for the next guilt trip or sideways jab. My life felt quiet. Not empty, just uncluttered. I poured more time into work, trained Eli on more complex builds, gave him his own clients, watched him grow and saw in his eyes the respect I'd once begged for from people who couldn't spell carpentry. That month, I finished a massive kitchen restoration. The client hugged me, tears in her eyes, saying, "You brought life back into this house?" And all I could think was, I did that. With my hands. With no one needing to post about it or slap a hashtag on it. Meanwhile, the silence from my family stretched longer and it stopped feeling like punishment. It became space. Space to heal, space to breathe. Until one night, I got an unexpected visitor. Danny. He knocked around 7, holding a 6-pack and a worn look on his face. Didn't want to text. "Figured this was better," he said. I nodded and let him in. We sat on my porch jacket, zipped beers open, silence settling in before he finally spoke. "They're a mess, man. Harper's been job hopping. Got into it with Mom last week. Said something about always being compared to you now. I raised an eyebrow. To me? He nodded. Yeah, Mom's been bringing you up more lately. Says she misses your steadiness, your help, your peace. I almost laughed. Not out of mockery, out of irony. Years of being dismissed, diminished. Suddenly I was a benchmark. But the truth was, I wasn't doing anything flashy. I was just living. Quietly, authentically. And maybe that's what rattled them most. Not my anger, but my absence. I thanked Danny, told him I appreciated the honesty. He didn't push, just left me with a simple, you don't owe anyone anything. But you deserve to be seen. That stayed with me. And days passed, then weeks. And slowly messages trickled in. Not demands, not insults in disguise, just questions. From Harper, do you think we could talk sometime? Not about favors, just talk. From Mom, would you come to Sunday dinner? No pressure. Just a seat for you if you want it. The old me would have rushed in, hope in hand, hungry for resolution. But the man I was becoming, he paused, took inventory, asked, is this peace or just a break between storms? So I waited. Didn't respond right away, not out of spite, but because you shouldn't have to chase sincerity. If it's real, it waits. One afternoon, I stopped by Miguel's workshop, told him everything. The silence, the guilt, the shift. He didn't say much, just looked at me and said, some families don't understand what they've lost until the light they kept ignoring goes out. That hit deep, because I realized I'd been their light. Quiet, dependable, always on. And when I turned inward, chose myself, they finally noticed the dark. Not because they missed me, but because they couldn't see without me. The next Sunday, I drove to Mom's house, not with a suitcase of apologies or an open wallet, just me. One person with new boundaries and an old last name. She opened the door, surprised but hopeful. Hi, she said. Hi, I replied. I didn't step in right away, just stood there letting the moment breathe. She motioned toward the living room. Dinner's ready, just the three of us, me, Harper, and you. I walked in. The house looked the same, but it felt different. Maybe because I did. Harper was sitting at the table. She stood when she saw me. Her expression was unreadable. Hey, she said. I'm glad you came. I nodded. We sat. The meal was simple. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, some salad, no wine, no speeches, just quiet clinks of forks and slow conversation. And then Mom looked at me and said, I've been thinking a lot. About how we treated you. About how much we leaned on you. I can't undo that, but I want to do better. I didn't rush to forgive, didn't dive into memories or arguments. I just said, that's all I ever wanted. Not perfection, just acknowledgement. Harper added, I was jealous. You built something from nothing. I had titles, but you had respect. I didn't know how to handle that. That was the first real thing she'd ever said to me. I nodded slowly. I never wanted a pedestal, just a seat at the table that didn't come with a bill. We didn't hug, no movie magic reconciliation. But something shifted, not fixed, just opened, like a window cracked after years of stale air. I left before dessert, told them I had an early job. They didn't argue, didn't beg me to stay, just walked me to the door, said thank you, and watched me go. Driving home, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt grounded, like I'd returned to the same place but on my own terms. That night, I sat by my fire watching the flames dance and thought about all the times I'd twisted myself into usefulness just to be seen, and how now finally I could just be. No performance, no proof, just me. And that was enough. Spring rolled in without warning. One day the wind still bit, and the next daffodils were pushing up from cracks in my front yard. Life had a funny way of blooming just when you stopped staring at the dirt. I was deep into a new project restoring an old farmhouse on the edge of town. Wood warped by time, walls that told stories if you knew how to listen. I found peace in the rhythm. Sanding, framing, painting. It was a meditation I never had to explain. One morning, while hauling salvaged beams, my phone buzzed with a name I didn't expect Harper. I paused to let it ring out. Then I opened the message. I'm pregnant. I didn't know who else to tell. 5 words, no fluff, no demands, Just a crack in the armor. I sat down on the porch steps of the old house, sweat clinging to my neck, and let that sink in. She didn't ask for help, didn't beg for money or a place to stay, just shared a truth. I replied simply, "Thank you for telling me. I hope you're okay." She didn't write back, and for once I didn't need her to. Because it wasn't about obligation anymore. It was about presence, intention. That night I called Miguel, told him about the message. He didn't give advice, just said, "Sometimes broken things aren't meant to be thrown away, just repurposed." I thought about that for a while, how even the warped beams in that old farmhouse had new strength when you cut them right and gave them time. A few days later, Mom called again. Her tone was different now, quieter, less rehearsed. "Your sister's scared. I think she's starting to understand things you've always known." I didn't ask for details. I didn't promise anything. I just said, "Let me know if she wants to talk." Not about the past, just about now. Weeks passed. I kept working. Eli was getting better, more confident, more careful. I saw myself in him less and less, and that made me proud. It meant he was becoming his own man. He'd ask me about life sometimes, not just tools or contracts. One day he said, "How do you know when to forgive someone?" I looked at him for a long moment. "When holding on to the anger costs you more than letting it go," I said. "But forgiving doesn't mean going back. It means moving forward without dragging their weight." He nodded like that made sense. Maybe it did. Maybe it would later. On a quiet Sunday morning in May, Harper showed up at my door. No call, no warning. Just her in a hoodie and sunglasses, belly small, but noticeable hands fidgeting like she wanted to turn and run. I opened the door, leaned against the frame, said nothing. She looked up, eyes tired but clear. "I don't want anything. I just wanted to see you." I stepped aside, let her in. We sat on the porch, same spot where I'd had that beer with Danny, same view of the street I'd watched for years. She spoke slowly. No script, no edge. "I don't know how to be close without needing something. I learned that from Mom, and I'm scared I'll teach that to my kid." I didn't interrupt. Just let her say it all. She kept going. "You didn't disappear. You just stopped performing." And that made me look at myself in ways I didn't want to. I nodded. "You're not the only one who learned that the hard way. We didn't solve anything that day. But we started something new. A relationship not built on obligation or shared blood, but the fragile honesty of two people trying to do better." She left after an hour. No tears, no promises, just a real goodbye. That night, I stood in my workshop organizing tools and realized something. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for anyone to fix things for me. I wasn't trying to prove myself to be needed to be forgiven. I was just okay. And okay was enough. I thought about the version of me that used to bend over backward for praise. Who paid for holidays just to be included? Who showed up with a hammer when they never brought respect? That man was still part of me, but he'd grown, he'd healed, he'd finally stepped out of the shadows and into his own space. These days the calls come less, the requests too. But when they do, I weigh them carefully. Not with resentment, just boundaries. I still go to Sunday dinners sometimes. I sit, I eat, I leave when I'm full, not just with food, but with knowing I showed up by choice, not compulsion. Harper sends updates now. Not often. Just enough. A sonogram. A silly craving. A moment of fear. I answer when I can. And when I don't, she understands. And Mom. She tries. Not perfectly, but she tries. Sometimes she thanks me without being prompted. Sometimes she listens without defending. That's enough. I don't need a different family. I just needed a different version of myself to meet them again. And now when I look in the mirror, I don't see the family handyman, or the invisible son, or the walking wallet. I see a man who knows his worth, who doesn't need applause to keep building, who chose peace not to punish but to survive. And now that peace is mine, I earned it. Quietly. Steadily. One no at a time, one boundary at a time, one truth at a time. And I never looked back. Story 2. My parents said, "Your sister deserves this house," after taking out a $463,000 mortgage in my name without my knowledge or consent to apply for my golden sister's loan. Helping families should be an honor for you. They screamed when I threatened to sue them. For financial gain, I was ruining the family. They all pleaded for forgiveness after what I did next. Hello, everyone. Prior to starting today's video, I need your assistance. One of the greatest ways you can help us out is to subscribe, since we've observed the channel is losing some of its popularity. It's quick, free, and helps us continue to provide you with amazing content. Your assistance is much appreciated. Together, let's continue to build this channel. Many thanks. Let's begin the video now. Disposable account. Because my main is known to some family members, I'm still sort of processing what happened 8 months ago. I must get it all out there, but be warned, this is lengthy. To be honest, you'll want the whole story for this one, but the summary is at the bottom. I will therefore begin with the point at which my entire world essentially fell apart. The morning was a Tuesday, 11:43 a.m. I can recall this because I was actually keeping an eye on the time as I awaited my lunch break. Inventory management is my job at a logistics company. It's nothing special, but it covers the expenses. My kitchen is so small that if 2 people are in there at the same time, someone will get elbowed. That's what I mean when I say that. Consuming those 99-cent ramen noodles as though I were a financial titan. My phone rings, number outside of the state area code that is unknown. Because so few people actually answer random calls these days, I would normally let it go to voicemail, but I thought, why not? Because I was bored. Hi there, I say, most likely sounding as though I'm eating because, well, I did. Is this Nathan Reynolds? It was a business-like voice. No. How are you today, bullshit? Direct to the point. Yes, I am that. From Silver Oak Mortgage Servicing, this is Tracy. We are contacting you regarding the amount that is past due on your mortgage account. Your address has been the subject of multiple notices from us, but we have not heard back. I literally stopped chewing as if I were a bewildered pasta monster with midnight noodles hanging out of my mouth. Wait. Which mortgage? Tracy didn't even put the property's mortgage on hold at 412. Lane in Millbrook Heights, Lavender Drive. The primary borrower is identified as you. The amount owed as of right now is $463,117.83. You know I'm serious. I burst out laughing, like belly laughing. It was so ridiculous that I thought I was being played. I believe you have the wrong Nathan Reynolds, lady. My bed is on the floor of the 600 square foot apartment I rent. This month, my biggest financial decision was whether to continue using the store brand or purchase name brand mac and cheese. Not to mention a $500,000 home, I don't even own a couch. Tracy sounded as though she was familiar with this dance and song. I know you're confused, sir, but I need to double check a few facts. Tracy then begins requesting my personal information. Social security number, birth date. Everything matched, including mother's maiden name. The loan was legitimate. It was defaulted and in my name. I could feel my face getting thinner. You know how your mind just starts screaming just before you're going to be hit by a truck? I was that person. I had to put the phone on speaker because I was shaking and my hands actually got cold. I can't hold it. Someone had obtained a mortgage using my identity approximately a year and a half prior. They purchased a home in a suburb I had never heard of, and within 10 months they went into default. The cosigner. My father. I was on the verge of going completely insane when everything finally clicked. You see, this is what you need to know about my family. I am the middle child. I have an older brother who is nearly flawless. He works in finance, married his college sweetheart, and has a golden retriever and 2 children living in a McMansion. Rachel, my younger sister, comes next. She has been the family princess since day 1 and is 27 years old, 5 years younger than me. After 6 months as a yoga instructor, Rachel has always found herself working as a life coach. She was going to be an influencer after that, in designer athleisure at all times. She is constantly discussing aligning with abundance and manifesting her dreams. Since she graduated from college with a communications degree that she has never used, my parents have been supporting her lifestyle. In the meantime, I started working when I was 16. I attended community college on my own dime, obtained a respectable job, never requested handouts. The responsible one who doesn't require assistance is me, the unseen child who keeps to himself and takes care of his own business. However, it seems that they used my identity to purchase Rachel her ideal home because I wasn't invisible enough. I called my dad right away after hanging up with Tracy. As usual, he gave his response. He was annoyed that someone had the audacity to disturb his retirement. Nate, what is going on? Have you signed my name as a cosigner on a mortgage? Dead silence. Like the kind of silence that rings in your ears because it's so loud. What makes you believe that when he did ask, it was much too quickly? He seemed to have been practicing the response because I had just received a call from the bank regarding a house that I reportedly own. And can you guess who is listed as a co-signer? More quiet. Then take a look. Relax. It's not very important. Not a huge concern. About 3 octaves were added to my voice. You purchased a home using my identity. That is outright fraud. He said that she needed help. Described everything. Assist? Without asking, you obtained a $463,000 loan for me. I heard her in the background at that point. Rachel's voice was whispery and panicked. She was there, of course, most likely relaxing in her stolen home on an expensive sectional sofa. She freaked out that she was going to lose her free ride. She always wears $150 athleisure pants, which are more expensive than my monthly grocery budget, and I could see her wearing them. My mother then joins the call. In any case, you weren't doing anything significant with your credit. I needed to take a seat. I was in such shock that I was unable to speak. They discussed my credit as if it were a family asset that they could take out whenever they wanted. Like their personal piggy bank was my financial future later. And I wanted to burn everything down because of this part. I discovered that in order to assist my dad in appealing a student loan issue, they had utilized an old power of attorney form that I had signed when I was 18. They used it to falsify my signature on mortgage documents and kept it for more than 10 years. My credit report appeared to be in a war zone when I pulled it that evening. Late payments. Collections. Proceedings for foreclosure, I was now at 520 instead of 780. And me, I had never even seen the house for which I was about to face legal action. The days that followed were a haze of paperwork phone conversations, and gradually realizing how far down this rabbit hole had gone. I spent 12 hours a day trying to understand what the hell had happened to my life, and I called in sick to work. Stop the credit report first. It was worse than I had anticipated. In addition to the mortgage during the previous 2 years, 3 credit cards were opened in my name. Maxed out. Everything is in default. While I was eating ramen and taking the bus to work, someone had been living it up on my credit. I sent cease and desist letters to each harassing collection agency, froze my credit, and reported identity theft to all 3 credit bureaus. The entire procedure felt like negotiating a bureaucratic nightmare created by sadists with hold times longer than some film. Transfer after transfer to non-existent departments. I once had to spend 45 minutes explaining my predicament to a man who kept asking me if I was certain I hadn't simply forgotten about purchasing a home. Yes, buddy, while I'm over here counting quarters for laundry money, I most definitely forgot about spending $500,000 on real estate. Here's the problem, though. My signature was still on file with the bank. A forged signature from my own family. I therefore took the sensible course of action. I got to work looking into it. Rachel hadn't just moved into this house, it turned out. For more than a year, she had been sharing posts about it on social media. Facebook posts about grateful living, Instagram stories from her ideal home, and TikToks showcasing her walk-in closet. She posed in front of granite countertops and a kitchen island that cost more than I make in 6 months in her entire highlight reel house girls. What really irritated me, though, is this. She hosts parties, wine nights with her yoga friends, and manifestation circles in the living room, while I receive foreclosure notices and collection calls. In her stolen home, she even held a vision board workshop where she charged $200 to cut out magazine pictures. It was fucking outrageous. After doing more research, I called the mortgage company and feigned to be checking information. I discovered that my annual income on the application was $147,000. In my entire life, I have never earned more than $63,000. I was a senior operations director at a company I had never heard of according to the employment verification. In order to get the loan, they not only stole my identity, but also made up my whole financial profile. But hold on, things will improve. One weekend, I stopped by the house to see what my damaged credit had purchased with $500,000. It's in one of those brand new communities where every house has the same appearance, and the homeowners association is probably going to find you because your mailbox is the wrong shade of beige. Large contemporary windows that shout, "I have more money than sense." Naturally, Rachel's white Mercedes was parked in the driveway. For perhaps 10 minutes, I just sat there and stared at this house that was legally mine but that I would never be able to afford. A jogger passed some soccer moms and expensive exercise equipment that probably exceeded my car payment while I watched my sister live her best life on my dime. She regarded me with suspicion as if I were snooping around. If only she knew that I was the one using identity theft to pay for half of the homes in this neighborhood. Something inside of me exploded at that moment. I had been the good son all along, the one who was quiet and unobtrusive, the person who never sought assistance and always cleaned up his own mess. But I had lost everything to them. My credit, my financial prospects, and my capacity to purchase a home of my own in the future. And what exactly did they expect me to do? Grin and accept it. No, I had had enough of being the doormat for the family. Actually, I wasn't finished being the doormat, so forget about that. I was going to be their worst nightmare ever. I should have probably just called the police and let them deal with it at this point. Ordinary people would have reported it to the police, hired a lawyer, passed through the appropriate channels, but by this time I wasn't feeling very normal. I had a strategic feeling. You see, being the middle child who gets ignored makes you an excellent observer. You gain the ability to focus and see details that others overlook. And as time went on, I realized that my family followed a very basic idea. Everyone else finds a way to make it work, and Rachel gets what she wants. I was going to change that script, though. I started by documenting everything, and I mean all of it. Images of Rachel's posts on social media, pictures of her vehicle in the parking lot, even her posting packages by the front door was captured on camera. Designer clothing from unpronounceable companies. Organic food kits that are more expensive each day than my weekly food expenditures. Copies of all correspondence from the mortgage provider. I created a spreadsheet to keep track of all payments, late fees, and collection notices. I was building a case like I was the FBI going after a mob boss. The spreadsheet was honestly therapeutic. Color-coded tabs, cross-reference data, links to supplementary materials. It would have impressed my colleagues. I'd never been this organized about anything in my life. However, I suppose that nothing inspires you more than righteous rage and the prospect of financial ruin. However, I required assistance. Expert assistance. So I called my friend Jenna from college. Now, Jenna and I weren't super close or anything, but we'd kept in touch over the years. She's a lawyer now, specializes in identity theft and financial fraud, smart as hell and tougher than a $2 steak. She owes me a favor from when I helped her move during a rainstorm and everyone else bailed. Plus, she hates bullies, and what my family did was pure bullying. I called her on a Friday afternoon. Jenna, I need to ask you something, and it's going to sound crazy. Try me. So I told her everything. The mortgage, the forged signature, Rachel living in the house, my parents acting like it was no big deal. When I finished, there was silence for like 30s. Holy shit. Nate, this isn't just identity theft. This is fraud on multiple levels. How long has this been going on? About 18 months, and they're still living in the house. Rachel is posting about it on Instagram like she's some kind of lifestyle influencer. Jenna laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh lawyers make when they smell blood in the water. Oh, we're going to bury them. Can you come in Monday, bring everything you've got? Monday couldn't come fast enough. I'm fast. Jenna's office is downtown. One of those glass towers that makes you feel important just walking through the lobby. The elevator had that new money smell, leather and expensive cologne, and the dreams of people who can afford $400 an hour legal fees. Made my target clearance button down feel even more inadequate than usual. She took one look at my folder of evidence and started grinning like Christmas morning. This is beautiful, she said, flipping through bank statements and credit reports. They didn't just forge your signature, they created an entirely fictitious financial profile. Look at this income verification. The letterhead is from a company that doesn't exist. The notary stamp belongs to someone who moved to Arizona 3 years ago. So, what can we do? We can do a lot. But first I need to ask, how far are you willing to go with this? I thought about Rachel's Instagram posts, her manifestation workshops, her wine nights in the house. I was paying for all the way. Good, because I'm about to introduce your family to the concept of consequences. Jenna laid out the plan. First, we'd file a formal fraud complaint with the bank demanding a full investigation into the loan's origination. We'd request all documentation, including the original applications and any supporting materials. Then we'd file a civil suit for damages. Not just the money, but emotional distress. Credit damage, lost opportunities. But here's the kicker. We weren't going to warn them. No family gatherings, no phone conversations, and no key opportunities to resolve the issue. When they falsified my signature, they had already made their decision. They would now have to deal with the fallout. As I was leaving, Jenna said, "One more thing. Avoid getting in touch with them. Don't call or text. Avoid going to the house. Let the documents speak for themselves." I nodded, but there was one thing about me that Jenna was unaware of, so I was already preparing my next move. My chess skills had always been superior to those of my family. It was time for me to make the first move. I was standing on Rachel's doorstep 2 weeks later, threatening to ruin her day with a manila folder. I needed to see Jenna's face when reality set in, even though she had warned me not to call them. Retaliation isn't always about winning. It's about observing their realization of their defeat. I took a personal day off from work and drove out on a Thursday morning. No heads up, no warning. A folder full of legal documents that would make any ordinary person shit their pants and me in a rental car. The house resembled Instagram in every way. A well-kept lawn. Those ornamental rocks look very costly. Everything is screaming, I have money. In case anyone thought Rachel couldn't afford auto repair, her Mercedes was in the driveway, likely waxed and detailed. I rapped once. Not difficult. The door rattles just enough. When Rachel opened it, she appeared truly surprised for a brief moment. Her face then changed into the phony smile she had mastered over the years. Nate, the one who claims you're overreacting and that I'm innocent. What a surprise, my God, she chirped, as if she hadn't just ruined my life financially. Why are you here? We must speak. All right, of course. Enter. Would you like to have a drink? I just made this incredible turmeric latte, which is said to help your chakras align and reduce inflammation. Despite my desire to punch something, preferably her face, I spoke at a level tone. The mortgage is the reason I'm here. Her smile paused for a moment. Which mortgage? The one you removed for this house in my name. The one that's in foreclosure right now? Oh, that, she chuckled. In fact, I laughed. Mom and Dad came up with the idea. Furthermore, you weren't making any use of your credit. What is the big deal then? What's the matter? The important thing. As soon as I entered, I wanted to set the place on fire. A Pinterest board appeared to have exploded. God forbid she watered anything, so there are fake plants everywhere. The banner over the kitchen sink that read, "Good vibes only," and those wooden signs with dumb, inspirational sayings like live, laugh, love, and blessed beyond measure. Her designer refrigerator's organic coconut milk was thinner than the freaking irony. The entire area let out a scream. I lack personality because I watch too many HGTV shows. White furniture and gray walls. Those dumb, useless throw pillows that cost $80 each. It was similar to browsing a furniture store where a tasteless person had an endless supply of money to spend. The important thing. Taking out my folder, I said, "Is that fraud that you committed?" Actually, several felonies. I laid out the contents on her immaculate white coffee table. Credit reports, bank statements, court records, and my personal favorite. A cease and desist letter from Jenna's legal practice. Rachel's gaze widened. All this evidence, what is it? Copies of the mortgage application that was forged? Proof of the fictitious income verification? Credit reports that demonstrate the damage you caused to my credit score? Reports of identity theft? And this. The final document I took out was a letter from my lawyer. She turned pale. As in pale? Your lawyer, yes. Morris and Jenna. Fraud and identity theft cases are her areas of expertise. Exceptionally skilled in her field. She has already complained to the state attorney general's office and the bank. Rachel took a firm seat on her immaculate white couch. Come on, Nate, we're related. Family members don't sign $500,000 loans for one another. My parents then entered the room. The timing was ideal. Actually, most likely they had been listening from the hallway while attempting to come up with a way to spin this. My mom's disappointed voice, which she had honed over the years, came out Nathan. What's going on here? It has to do with the mortgage you assisted Rachel in obtaining in my name. The one that has ruined my credit and left me with debt totaling more than $463,000. When I was 12, my dad would cross his arms in that intimidating pose, but now it just made him look pitiful. Hold on now. This is being exaggerated beyond recognition. It was meant to be short-term. Short-term, I chuckled. 18 months have passed. The home is in foreclosure. 260 points were deducted from my credit score. In what way is that temporary? We intended to inform you. When did my mother say that when my fictitious assets were seized by the sheriff? At last, Rachel was able to speak up. Refinancing is out of my price range. I don't have enough credit. No longer my problem. I began to collect the papers. You see, this is what will occur. Next week, Jenna will file a civil suit. We are pursuing damages, legal fees, credit repair expenses, emotional distress, and the loan amount. The state attorney general is investigating possible criminal charges, and the bank is fully investigating the fraudulent documents. The room fell silent. Like a fish, my dad's mouth was opening and closing. My mother appeared on the verge of tears. As if I had grown a second head, Rachel simply gazed at me. You're not serious. At last, my dad said very seriously, I was used by you. My signature was falsified by you. To get Rachel a house she couldn't afford, you damaged my credit. Then you anticipated that I would. What exactly pay for it with a smile? I started to go to the door, but I stopped. By the way, Rachel, your lovely Instagram posts clearly demonstrate that you have been residing here with knowledge and purpose. Jenna will be thrilled with those. I didn't turn around as I left, but I could hear Rachel sobbing through the door. Excellent. It had to do with time. What did they say about retaliation? They don't tell you how satisfying it is to watch everything fall apart in real time, but it's a dish that tastes best cold. Rachel called me 6 times in the 3 days following my brief visit. I didn't respond. Then the texts arrived. Give me a call back, Nate. This is something we must discuss. The bank gave a call. They have a lot of different questions. Mom has pains in her chest. She's literally having a heart attack from you. All right, act like a jerk. But it's not over yet. I sent Jenna the screenshots I took of everything. Proof of guilt and ongoing harassment, manipulation. I said, she said, continue to send them in. Things started to get really interesting the following week. The company that was going to repo Rachel's dream home was Silver Oak Mortgage, where Jenna's friend Alicia worked in compliance. Although Alicia was unable to provide us with insider knowledge, she was able to ensure that our fraud complaint received the attention it required. And wow, did it draw notice. It appears that banks pay attention when you bring up a fraud complaint with sufficient proof to sink a small city. A thorough internal investigation into the loan origination was started by Silver Oak. Every employee who touched the application was interviewed, all the documents were pulled, and some very awkward questions were asked, such as how a logistics coordinator earning $63,000 could be eligible for a $463,000 mortgage. Even the math is flawed. If you include my stellar reputation at the time, debt-to-income ratios are small measures used by banks to keep ordinary people from obtaining loans that they cannot afford. My fictional persona apparently earned enough money to scoff at such trivial issues. Why was the income verification printed on fictitious company letterhead? In fact, I looked up the company name on Google. The best logistics options. No outcomes, not even a LinkedIn page or a placeholder website. They actually created a company to defraud me into buying a house. And who the devil was this notary who had lived in Arizona for 3 years and was supposed to have seen my signature? My family's situation worsened as they dug deeper. The forged power of attorney and the fraudulent income documents. The employment history was entirely made up. It was deception. It was so clear that even a blind man could see it. This is my favorite part, though. Do you recall the credit cards that I opened? As it turns out, Rachel had been using them for things like her own ATM expensive clothing spa services and her foolish manifestation retreats. In my name, she had accrued more than $40,000 in debt on 3 different cards, all the while sharing content on social media about financial independence. The receipts were outrageous. $200 for crystal-infused water therapy, $400 for Reiki energy cleansing, and about $500 for a place called Divine Feminine Awakening Retreat, where it seems you have to pay top dollar to sit in a circle and discuss your emotions while consuming expensive organic snacks. In the civil suit, Jenna subpoenaed her bank records. What they displayed was exquisite. Rachel wasn't simply impoverished. She was like a fire hydrant leaking money. Life coaches and personal trainers. Crystal healing therapy is something that costs $300 per session. Manifest your millionaire mindset. A $7,000 retreat is my personal favorite. The woman was spending $700 to learn how to think like a millionaire, even though she couldn't afford her own mortgage. In the meantime, my parents' account was used to make each and every payment on the house until they stopped. Thus, they obtained a loan under my name. They paid for it themselves until they ran out of money, but they never told me. Then allowed it to default, leaving me to bear the repercussions. The sheer audacity was astounding. But hold on, things will improve. Because Silver Oak had to stop all foreclosure proceedings while they conducted their investigation. Rachel was able to remain in the house while they determined whether the loan was valid. She naturally concluded that this would all be resolved. She continued sharing motivational sayings on Instagram about enduring life's storms and maintaining a connection to plenty in the face of adversity. Without a hint of irony, she even performed an entire Instagram live about how family members' negative energy can prevent you from manifesting your goals. Continued hosting small gatherings for wine nights where she and her equally naive friends would sip $30 bottles and discuss their travels. She even created a GoFundMe page to cover unforeseen legal costs, claiming that it was the result of a family miscommunication. A masterwork of delusion was the GoFundMe description. Hello, lovely souls. I'm going through a difficult moment because of some family drama that's influencing my living situation, as many of you are aware. Some people are attempting to block my blessings through legal means because they don't understand the power of manifestation in abundance. As I make my way through this challenging journey, any assistance would be greatly appreciated. I'm serious. People actually contributed to her legal defense after she was found guilty of defrauding her own brother. There seems to be a whole group of fools who think that being financially responsible is just another way of thinking negatively. I realized then that she still didn't understand. She believed this to be just another mess that would be cleaned up by her parents, another issue that would be resolved if she ignored it long enough. Jenna had been busy while Rachel was manifesting her way out of consequences, and she was about to discover how mistaken she was. Jenna was constructing a case that would bring joy to the prosecutors. She kept a record of everything. The fraudulent credit applications, the falsified income verification, and the falsified signatures. She had conducted witness interviews, collected evidence, and drafted a civil suit that was so strong it could withstand a nuclear explosion. The real kicker, though, she had also forwarded all of it to the office of the district attorney. Since identity theft is more than just a civil case, it is considered a felony. Prosecutors also take offense when you steal more than $500,000 under someone else's name. On a Tuesday, the criminal referral was processed. By Friday, Rachel was being questioned sharply by 2 detectives about identity theft and mortgage fraud. She called me crying and pleading with me to stop this, so I found out. I let the voicemail go. After that, I played the message for Jenna as we sipped coffee together. Jenna stirred her latte and said, "That's the sound of consequences. Catching up at last." I grinned. We had only just begun. The criminal investigation proceeded more quickly than I anticipated. It turns out that prosecutors don't waste time when you give them a case that is obvious and there is more evidence than they can handle. On a Monday morning, I received a call from Detective Martinez. Expert, simple, no bullshit. We've looked over the proof you gave us about the fraudulent mortgage, Mr. Reynolds. Please come in and make a formal statement for us. The most amazing Monday ever. The police station was just as you might have imagined. Stale coffee, fluorescent lights, and that peculiar odor. That is a combination of desperation and disinfectant. Detective Martinez set up a digital recorder and escorted me to a small interview room. "Tell me what happened, please, from the start," she said. In order to learn more about the house and find the forged documents, I called the bank. While my credit burned, Rachel was having a good time. Martinez made notes, asked questions to get clarification, gave the appropriate nods. When I was done, she said, "This is fairly simple. Both your parents and sister have a history of felony convictions, fraudulent document filing, mortgage fraud, and identity theft. You have presented overwhelming evidence. Now what? After we complete our investigation, we give the district attorney the case. We are looking at serious charges considering the monetary amounts involved. If found guilty on all counts, your sister could spend 10 to 15 years in prison." 10 to 15 years for a moment. I nearly felt guilty. Nearly. Then I recalled last week's Instagram post from Rachel. With the caption, "Grateful for abundance flowing into my life," I took a selfie in front of her house. God bless you. Magical manifestation. Dreams come true. While the criminal case was developing, the emotion subsided. The speed of the civil side was equal. The week prior, Jenna had filed our lawsuit, and Rachel and my parents had received papers from the process server on the day the detectives arrived. Rachel left me a voicemail that evening, which you ought to have heard. I'm referring to 6 minutes of uncontrollably sobbing threats, guilt trips, and what I can only characterize as a total breakdown of the mind. Our family is being destroyed by you. How are you able to treat your own sister like this? You are the reason Mom is in the hospital. Dad is considering disowning you. This is all over some dumb documents. I despise you. I absolutely despise you. I kept it. Jenna described it as outstanding proof of harassment and intimidation. But once the bank's investigation was complete, the real fun began. Silver Oak did not conclude that the loan was fraudulent on its own. They went nuclear. They insisted on paying the entire amount due right away along with penalties. When it didn't occur, I know it's shocking. They pursued Rachel and my parents for damages and expedited the foreclosure process. It turns out that making banks unintentional participants in mortgage fraud really annoys them. Who could have known in her own name Rachel attempted to refinance? She had a 531 credit score. Her application was even mocked by payday loan companies. She attempted to sell the house, but the problem with homes purchased through fraudulent loans is this. When attorneys are involved, the title becomes a complete mess. It would never be touched by a real buyer. So, what did she do, rightfully so? When reality sets in, people always do. She intensified her efforts. She brought in her own attorney, an attorney from a strip mall who most likely obtained his degree from a Cracker Jack box. This guy actually had the audacity to claim that by failing to keep a close enough eye on my credit reports, I had unwittingly agreed to the loan. Yes, I was partially to blame for my sister's identity theft since I didn't catch her in time. He was dismembered in court by Jenna. By eviscerated, I mean that she made him into a legal hamburger. With a methodical, professional, and icy precision that makes opposing counsel reevaluate their life decisions, she presented our evidence. Rachel testified tearfully that she had honestly thought she had permission to use my credit. But the judge was unimpressed by either the family disagreement defense or the implicit consent argument. He was particularly unimpressed when Jenna played Rachel's GoFundMe video in which she sat in the house that had been stolen, wearing a $300 yoga outfit that she had purchased with my credit cards, and described the entire situation as a misunderstanding. The judge, Miss Reynolds, stated that this court does not accept manifesting as a valid financial planning technique and that ignorance is not a defense for felony fraud. I nearly cheered. Everything we had requested and more was included in the civil judgment. In addition to a permanent injunction prohibiting Rachel or my parents from ever using my personal information again, there will be $267,000 in damages, which will cover the loan balance, legal fees, credit repair costs, emotional distress, and interest. Given the intentional and malevolent nature of the fraud committed by family members against the plaintiff, the judge specifically stated that the emotional distress damages were justified. The legal system acknowledged that this was more than simple theft. On the most profound level, it was betrayal. Here's the lovely part, though. The criminal charges, which included conspiracy, filing false documents, mortgage fraud, and serious identity theft in the first degree, were still pending. The district lawyer was discussing setting an example. Real prison time was what Rachel was facing. Additionally, Mommy and Daddy were unable to write a check to make it go away for the first time in her book, Little Life. The following month was set aside for the foreclosure hearing. Since I was definitely going to be there to watch, I made sure to ask Jenna for the time and date. The foreclosure hearing exceeded my expectations in every way. Imagine a gray conference room in a courthouse that had the odor of stale coffee and crushed hopes. Wearing a white blazer that likely cost more than my rent, Rachel and her discount lawyer are seated at a cheap folding table holding a Starbucks cup as if it were a life preserver. When she saw me enter, her face fell apart like a sandcastle being struck by a wave. She was unable to fake a smile for the first time in her life. My parents were also present. They appeared to have aged by 10 years and 2 months. My father continued to glare at me as if I were solely to blame for this. My mom was acting like she was waiting for someone to come save her, clutching her purse and scanning the area. There was no one to save them. Not now. The lawyer for the bank was a shrewd woman in her 50s who appeared to be a foreclosure expert. She presented the facts objectively. Default and late payments, documents of fraudulent origin, failure to cure in spite of several chances. Then Jenna got to her feet. She didn't have much to say. The evidence was self-evident. Counterfeit signatures, fake proof of income, theft of identity, fraud involving credit cards. She methodically undermined all of Rachel's attorney's arguments. However, the judge's direct question to Rachel is the moment I will never forget. Miss Reynolds, before using your brother's identity to obtain this mortgage, did you get his express written consent? Rachel opened her mouth shut. It glanced at my parents and her lawyer and then whispered, no. Additionally, did you use your personal funds to make any loan payments? No. Additionally, do you currently have a job that pays enough to cover your mortgage payments? Longer silence. No. The judge took notes and nodded. The foreclosure will take place on time. In 30 days, the property will be put up for public auction. Until the criminal fraud case is resolved, Mr. Nathan Reynolds is hereby released from all liability. He gave Rachel a direct look. Regarding the pending criminal charges, Miss Reynolds, I strongly advise you to obtain legal counsel. This court recommends prosecution to the fullest extent of the law because it has seen enough evidence of intentional fraud. Rachel broke down in tears, not the lovely tears. She used to use ugly, desperate sobs to control others. She literally had her ideal Instagram life up for auction, piece by piece. Outside the courthouse, my father attempted to corner me. This was not necessary for you to do. We might have been able to come to an agreement. We had the option. Before you falsified my signature and damaged my credit, I consented 18 months ago. You're my dad and she's your sister. You still put me under the bus for her, though. Now my mom was crying uncontrollably. How are you able to be so mean? This is not how we brought you up. I stared at her for a while. No, you didn't. While Rachel got everything she wanted, you taught me to be quiet and thankful. You taught me to never ask for anything myself and to clean up other people's mess. But what do you know? I wasn't brought up to be a doormat by you. Throughout the entire conversation, Rachel had remained silent. She appeared as though her world had come to an end, because the house had gone up for auction as she stood there in her pricey blazer with mascara streaming down her face. It was purchased by an investor for $380,000 3 weeks later. Really a steal. But when properties have legal clouds hanging over them, that's what happens. Because Rachel had barricaded himself inside and claimed squatters' rights, the sheriff's department had to physically remove him. Although I wasn't present, the video was uploaded to TikTok by a friend of my neighbor's cousin. Locally, it went viral. An influencer received about 200,000 views after dragging out a foreclosed dream home. 8 months passed during the criminal trial. Despite avoiding jail time by entering a guilty plea, Rachel was still subject to 3 years of probation, 500 hours of community service, and an irreversible felony record. As co-conspirators, my parents were each placed on 2 years of probation. The civil ruling. I have yet to see a dime. Rachel is broke. In order to pay lawyers, my parents sold their retirement condo. It's also impossible to extract blood from a stone. However, that's all right. I had no intention of collecting. I received something more valuable than cash. I regained my life. I have restored my credit score to 720. Last month, I purchased a modest condo. It's in my name, but it's nothing fancy. In fact, I can afford a mortgage. I now use a real bed to sleep on. There's no mattress on the ground. Purchased a couch and even treated myself to a high-end coffee maker. Rachel. She was living with a man she met at her court-mandated financial responsibility classes as far as I knew. After the TikTok incident went viral, she deleted all of her social media accounts. Most likely for the best. On my birthday, my parents made an effort to get in touch with me and sent a card about forgiveness and mending family rifts. I tossed it away without opening it. Not all wounds heal. Forgiveness isn't always earned. Here's what I didn't anticipate, though. I have lost my anger. Not resentful, not bitter. Simply free. Free from their manipulation, their drama. They thought I would always be available to clean up their mess. A few months ago, I anonymously shared this story on a financial advice forum. It obviously exploded. Hundreds of comments from individuals with comparable experiences. Parents that ruined their children's credit, siblings who were dishonest, families that instilled a sense of shame rather than responsibility. The true triumph was that. Not the criminal charges, not the lawsuit. Not even witnessing the deputies drag Rachel from her home. It was recognizing that I wasn't the only one who had been taken advantage of and manipulated by their own families. Devastation isn't always the best form of retaliation. It simply means not being a victim any longer. In fact, don't do that. Devastation is sometimes the best form of retaliation, and not becoming a victim. Either one works for me.